In the same year, back in London, Malcolm brought together a group of unlikely lads who would make an anti-music, anti-fashion statement for him.
Formed this band around Malcolm's shop with all these people who were in the hippest place or the weirdest place in London. I saw it as my exit from the straight 9-to-5 world somehow. Don't know how, I didn't think it through, but there was just a vibe about the whole thing. And Steve and Paul used to come in with their gang of mates, ostensibly to nick stuff. And it was kind of my job to stop them. And I overheard them talking one day that they had a band that Steve was always pestering Malcolm to get involved with. When I popped up, well, I play bass, or I'm learning bass. And Malcolm said, well, why don't you guys get together? You know, and he started sort of instigating this kind of thing there and then.
In came this guy, desperate to buy a pair of these white suede pointed brothel creepers. And I said, do you want to audition to be in a band? He thought I was totally mad and said, no, I'm not interested. And I said, well, I want you to be. I said, what? Do you sing? Do you like music? You know, I was asking him all these inane questions. I felt utterly ridiculous, actually. However, I eventually managed to seduce him sufficiently to come and meet the rest of the crew.
I was just another hopeless kid out of the council flats. I had no career and couldn't care less about the shenanigans of the hoity-toity bourgeoisie.
The Sex Pistols were spawned.
Young, sexy assassins. That's what the Sex Pistols meant to me. That's what the name that I gave them meant to me. And to send them out to be as irresponsible and as subversive and as childlike and represent everything this society might hate.
Because we didn't give a damn whether we were big, small or anything. We just did what we wanted to do and that was it. Success was not something we sought out, and it wasn't something that came, really. The Sex Pistols were big after they ceased to exist.
Anarchy for the UK is coming sometime, and maybe I give a wrong time, stop a traffic line. Your future dream is a shopping scheme, 'cause I wanna be.
It all was an art thing, and I was a kind of fashion victim and a fashion gorilla.
We recorded Anarchy in the UK, and then we was rehearsing for the Anarchy tour, and then we got this call to go and do the Bill Grundy show.
I am told that that group have received £40,000 from a record company. Doesn't that seem to be slightly opposed to their anti-materialistic view of life?
No, more the merrier.
Really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Well, tell me
McClaren's talent for creating publicity stunts was taken a stage further when the Pistols, who hadn't yet had a hit record, appeared on a daytime family TV show, previously a platform for demure and deferential artists.
No. What was the rude word?
Shit.
Was it really? Good heavens, you frightened me to death.
Oh, all right.
What about you girls behind?
He's like your dad, isn't he, this geezer?
Are you,
Or your granddad.
Are you worried, or are you just enjoying yourself?
Enjoying myself.
Are you?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you were doing.
I always wanted to meet you.
Did you really?
Yeah.
We'll meet afterwards, shall we?
You dirty sod. You dirty old man.
Well, keep going, Chick, keep going. Go on, you've got another 5 seconds. Say something outrageous.
You dirty bastard.
Go on, again.
You dirty
What a clever boy.
What a rotter.
Well, that's it for tonight.
The interview was curtailed kind of quickly. I headed back into the green room to try and see if there was one more warm can of lager there. Malcolm grabbed me and he said, come on, let's get out of it. And just as well as he did, because this Daimler limo was outside, we pulled in that, and the split second we drove off, the Black Mariah turned up with like coppers with their truncheons hanging out, sort of running into the studio. See you later, mate. And then the next day, instead of Malcolm having to call up everybody and get them interested in our band, the Fleet Street were knocking on his door. You know, and it just changed overnight.
He was a great spin doctor in a way. He would react to situations with incredible alacrity and inventiveness without actually having created them with a master plan. They happened, which, you know, the Grundy show was an example of that, because he, immediately after that show, he was saying, you've ruined everything, you've blown everything I've been working for, until he woke up the next day and saw the newspaper headlines, every national newspaper going berserk, and he realised this is the best thing that ever happened. But then he was brilliant at picking that up and amplifying it and making it really work for what he was doing.
McClaren's guerrilla tactics included staging provocative and newsworthy events. He called these orchestrated situations artworks, which also raked in the money.
The Sex Pistols and the signing at Buckingham Palace just sort of placed what was, I suppose, something I thought was authentic and real, the Sex Pistols, against something that I thought was karaoke, Buckingham Palace, the Queen. And this combination, to me, summed up what the culture was about. And these were the forces to play with. I suppose the group themselves, the Sex Pistols, they kind of felt they were being had, I suppose, that they were being caught in this scam of mine. And to some extent, that's probably true. But that's all I could do. That's what gave me my happiness.
He had the gift of the gab, you know, and he had the gift of the gab in a very eloquent, artistic, cultural kind of way that he managed to sweet-talk a lot of people into his way of thinking.
The skin that it was wrapped in and the ideas that the whole thing were wrapped in, which was essentially McClaren at the middle of some kind of crazy team that he'd assembled, that was what was interesting about the Sex Pistols, and that's what really had the iconic effect on people's lives and on society. It wasn't the music or even the idea of the music, it was the fact that he'd created an event, he'd created a work of art, a living work of art.
6 months later, on the Queen's Jubilee weekend, McClaren staged his most notorious stunt. He placed the Pistols and a party of 200 admirers on a boat trip down the Thames to publicise their latest record, God Save the Queen.
Fights broke out on deck, as they do, and we were subsequently surrounded by the river police.
God save the Queen, the fascist regime, it made you a moron.
All the people getting off the boat were all disappearing within the crowd, but I didn't disappear quickly enough and got snatched and arrested.
Thanks to this chaotic boat trip, the record, already banned by the BBC, sold 200,000 copies overnight. McClaren, ever the spinner and the situationist, claimed it would have been a #1 hit had the pop charts not been rigged to keep Rod Stewart at the top. Britain wasn't ready for this alternative anthem.
It was about the flowers in the dustbin. And it's true, there was no future in England's dreaming. You wanted to make the dreams real. And to do that, you had to go as far as you could in creating that kind of provocation. It was like, that's the Morse code. That's the ticket. That's the ticket to the carnival, the real, authentic carnival of a better life.
To create the artwork for this punk anthem, McClaren called upon his art school pal, Jamie Reid.
I think it was News of the World. I saw that photograph, and again, it was completely spontaneous and just did that image, you know, which was initially just done as flyers, stuck up on sort of tube stations and on the streets. Then that became the sleeve, and then that became the poster.
The Daily Mirror portrait was not her portrait by a Terence Donovan or someone. It was Jamie Reid's graphic of a safety pin through her nose. Oh, you know, you can't beat that, man. That's National Gallery status.
Everyone who read every daily newspaper could have had it straight in their face on the front page.
Malcolm had been so busy scamming, he hadn't noticed how his band were actually feeling.
We were very much in the public eye and bombasted all across papers like The Sun, The Daily Mirror, and yet no money in pocket and still squatting at the time. That was a real contradiction and a hard one to tolerate. You know, someone was lying to us. It just took about a few months longer for us to find out exactly who.
Yeah, well, a lot of the ideas he never told us, you know. He just used to shove us out there, and we just get on and do our thing, play, and he never told us half the things he was scamming, you know what I mean? So he's a complete con man, really. You know, we was really naive. I was only 19 at the time, you know, and didn't really know what was going on. But I was a real ding-dong, really.
You know, but I firmly believe that Malcolm didn't realise the Sex Pistols were a great rock and roll band. You know, he was trying to pitch it that we were some kind of Larry version of the Bay City Rollers, and he started to believe it. And I thought we individually deserved a bit more respect from him, which wasn't forthcoming.
After just one great album and 4 years of continuous turmoil and band changes, the Pistols were all burnt out, and they dissolved in disarray.
The music of punk rock was only one aspect, and for me, not a major aspect. It wasn't as if they were creating music that was that original. It had an authenticity about it because it seemed to be played by amateurs. And I promoted the fact that it was better not to play than to be able to play. It seemed cooler, which gave rise and hope to legions of kids all over the country who overnight could steal a guitar as cheap as it was in Woolworths and literally start playing one chord. And many groups like Susie and the Banshees, Buzzcocks, X-Ray Specs, The Damned, and so on and so forth, all sort of blossomed and were created overnight.
The liberation of seeing a band and thinking I could be that, even though I couldn't play, even though I'd never had a music lesson, how life-affirming is that? He did that. He did that to lots and lots of people. He did that to a whole generation, which is still affecting people now. Malcolm managed my band, The Slits, for a while. We never saw him. Couldn't ever get him on the phone. I don't know what sort of manager he was. He was a sort of a myth.
McClaren chose to enshrine his own myth in the 1980 film, playing the scheming and unscrupulous manager of a punk band called the Sex Pistols.
Dear Stars, why do you devote so much space to the appalling Sex Pistols? I thought we were trying to cut out violence at concerts, football matches and wherever. It's these sick bastards who encourage it. You just have to look at their audience. I doubt if they've got one O-level between them.
Yeah, that's not bad, Soph. We've got to make sure that we can create enough stink to whip up real hatred before that record comes out.
I was working with his structures and his mental ideas of how to take on not just the music business in terms of the swindle, but the audience. There was a sense that the audience had been swindled again and again, and we were going to make them see how that swindle worked, and created this deliberate inversion of fact and fiction.
How much money has been made out of all this?
So far, my secretary said it was $779,000.